This week on Quality Digest Live, we chat with Ron Hicks of the CMSC about World Metrology Week.
Plus, what you need to know about food safety. That and more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for May 23rd, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
Yes, he is, and I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. We're going to kick the show off this week with an article that we ran in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. The piece, titled "A Better Way to Understand Product Profitability," was written by Brian Maskell, and Brian Maskell has written for us a few times now.
Yep.
We've run articles from Brian a couple of times in the recent past. What I liked about this particular article was that it presented a rather novel approach to the core issue of profitability. Oh, we all understand that. You know, if you're in business, you have to understand how profitable you are, how different lines are profitable, different products and such. And as Maskell says, when most manufacturing companies think about profitability, they think in terms of gross margins, i.e. the standard cost it takes to make something versus the price you can charge for it. However, the margin only gives you an estimated figure because cost is made up of a lot of, as Maskell says, tenuous allocations. I love that phrase, tenuous allocations. It's true. So, what's a better way? How about the metric that Maskell calls contributions per minute?
And I thought this was pretty clever, actually.
Pretty clever, pretty interesting. I've never heard of this one before. In this calculation, you take all your variable costs to make a product, and those include the material costs as well as other costs that are paid for outside of your company, and subtract from that the price you get for the finished product. That is known as the contribution. Then you divide that number by the time in minutes it takes to cycle that product through your constraint or bottleneck. The simple example that Maskell uses is for a product that sells for $1,000 and it has $400 in variable costs. So subtract the one from the other and you get $600. If the constraint takes 10 minutes per product, then you end up with a contribution per minute figure of 60. Important to note here, this is very important to note, fixed costs such as labor or machinery are not included because they generally are going to be the same week after week, month after month, year after year. They'll change a little bit, but that's pretty much a fixed cost.
Right.
So, you know, it takes people, it takes machines to do stuff. So that's fixed. What you're trying to get to is the unfixed cost per product and how long it takes to cycle through. What contribution per minute really does, it allows the manufacturer to understand the true cost of time. Inefficiencies will quickly drag down your contribution per minute figure. You can also easily see what products or processes are most value adding, and hopefully you can crank up the production on those that are making you the most money. You can also see in a real way the real drag, the true drag of inefficiency, and you can take steps to lean out your process, which should quickly show up in rising contribution per minute numbers. I mean, you think about it, you know, if you have things that aren't efficient, if you have a long changeover for a die, let's say, or you don't. You have a particular product that is very high, you think it's very high margin, high profit, but it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of effort to do that. Maybe it's not as profitable as you really think it is. That's the idea of contribution per minute, is to really understand that. Now, I really simplified Maskell's point here for the purposes of the show, but if you're in manufacturing and you're interested in this, I certainly encourage you to check out the story and find out for yourself how the concept of contribution per minute can help you improve your lean efforts.
Well, and I'm not sure, I mean, we were thinking around here, I'm not sure it's just necessarily manufacturing. I mean, we were thinking around here, I mean, we were actually knocking the idea around here, is it possible to understand contribution per minute even in our environment? So given that our product is, let's say, a newsletter. Well, how long does it take? You know, what's the bottleneck in the newsletter? Or maybe the whole newsletter is a bottleneck. I mean, it depends how you want to treat it. But the thing is it may be possible to apply this in maybe even transactional environments or customer service environments.
I think it is. I think it's not as easy. I think it may not be as crystal clear. Because in a production environment on a shop floor, you have so much stuff you're cycling through. You know, in an environment like ours, you know, we can break our major thing, putting out a newsletter every day, into component parts. But it's not like a shop where you have 10,000 pieces going out of the door every day. You know, you can really, I think, nail it down better in manufacturing, but I think it's a good point. I think it applies to transactional and service environments too. So, for more information on this item, not to mention all the other pieces that Dirk and I are going to be covering later on today's show, as always, be sure to check out the story links available right below the video player screen right down there.
You know, it's It's funny how often the people we work with have some sort of interesting history. And
your history was fascinating. That whole thing with the circus.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
yeah, that was great.
In the midgets.
Dirk will tell you the backstory.
Little people, sorry. So I went, and actually, these backstories, you're talking about a coworker, and yeah, your coworkers' histories can be really interesting once you get down to them.
That's scary.
I'm going to get in trouble. But actually, a lot of times you talk to your clients, and we have a lot of clients over a really wide variety of industries.
Sure.
And you talk to your clients, and you find out that some of these guys have some really interesting history of how their company got started, or maybe what the past president of the company used to do, that sort of stuff. And this one we got this week from Dayton Brunson.
Dayton Brunson.
Oh, Dayton Brunson.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Right.
Dayton is the president of Brunson Instrument. As part of Metrology Week this week, we had gotten all sorts of metrology-related stories, including this one that Dayton Brunson sent us. And it's a story about how in the 1930s, one of Brunson's instruments, this was right at the beginning, I believe, of Brunson Instruments' history, a transit went to the Antarctic. Transit is a surveying type of instrument. It went to the Antarctic. Sometime in the late 1930s, Congress had established the U.S. Antarctic Service and had commissioned at that time Admiral Richard Byrd to go to the South Pole. Now, Byrd had already been to the South Pole before. This was actually going to be his third trip. The second trip Byrd made actually almost killed him, so they just figured, oh, heck, you want to go back?
Why not?
Sure, why not? So as part of his surveying equipment on this third trip, Byrd took one of Brunson's modified transits, so it went to the South Pole. As I said, a transit is like a precision instrument for measuring angles over a distance, and you see one there on the screen, but you've probably seen surveyors using them all the time. They look a lot more modern than that one, but this transit was modified because earlier transits, which were being used, let's say, out in the Dust Bowl, for instance, they didn't have a sealed base. So when they were being used out in the Dust Bowl in the United States, things like dust and moisture could get into them, and it was really screwing them up. So Brunson had come up with a sealed base for the transit. So that sealed base transit went to the South Pole. I mentioned that moisture can't get into these things because they're sealed. And if you can imagine, if you have moisture getting into something, and then you get, 50 degrees below zero, it's going to cause some problems.
Sure.
Well, not only was the Brunson transit taken to the South Pole, but several other transits made by other companies were taken, and apparently, according to Brunson anyway, Brunson's transit was the only one that worked in the extreme cold. The other one simply
froze up.
So Byrd and his crew used it to lay out the buildings for their base camp, Little America 3. And on August 30th, 1939, Brunson received a Western Union telegram from the South Pole thanking him for the use of the transit. So there you go. I thought it was kind of cool.
That's a great piece of history. What it shows here in World Metrology Week, what that shows is the ubiquitous nature of metrology, of measurement tools and equipment, and how advancements in these things help science advance and help humanity advance and do things. I mean, simple things like being able to measure angles, right? I mean, measure using a transit are key to survival. I mean, you can envision if in a situation where, maybe they'd be in the South Pole and they weren't able to measure properly because everything froze up.
Yep.
In this case, maybe there would be some serious consequences, right? I mean, they don't know where the heck they are, and
maybe he would have died on that trip.
Who knows? But maybe that would have been the one. But no, I think that again, it points up here in World Metrology Week. Great time to do it. That metrology really does have an influence and impact in people's lives.
And speaking of metrology,
it's important. Yeah, speaking of metrology, a little segue there. As many of you do know, this has been World Metrology Week, and it's certainly been our pleasure again for the third straight year to celebrate it with our partner, the Coordinate Metrology Society. The group's annual event, the Coordinate Metrology Systems Conference, marks its 30th anniversary this year with CMSC 2014 in North Charleston, South Carolina, and that's July 21st through the 25th. If you're responsible for test, measurement, assembly within large volume and tight tolerance sectors such as aerospace, automotive, shipbuilding, energy or communications infrastructure, a lot of others, you'll want to mark your calendar for this event. Again, it's July 21st through the 25th in North Charleston, South Carolina. So there's a lot going on at CMSC 2014, including more than 20 cutting-edge white paper presentations, a bustling exhibition hall where we will be, a measurement zone with daily educational activities and competitions, and level 1 and level 2 personnel certification testing. As I say, lots going on. So to tell us more about it, we're very happy now to welcome CMS Executive Committee Chairperson Ron Hicks to the show. Hello again, Ron.
Hello, guys. How are you today?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, and happy Metrology Week.
That's
there
right.
we go.
World Metrology Week. Thanks, Ron, for joining us as well. Well, you know, and as fans of the show know, we chatted with you at CMSC 2013 in San Diego. At that time, we spoke a little bit about the certification program that the Society, the CMS, has been developing. So bring us up to speed on the events of the last several months and what people can expect in terms of certification testing at CMSC 2014.
Sure. We've been working very hard. As I mentioned to you last summer, we have a certification committee. Actually, we have two now, a level 1 certification committee and a level 2. The level 1 certification group has been working very hard to provide at this year's conference the level 1 testing. This is the online assessment that we did last year, and then we had several people sign up for and become certified for the level 1 practical knowledge assessment. And we're looking forward to doing that again this year. Also, we're rolling out our level 2 assessment, which is the use of portable CMM arms or articulating arms. And we've been working very hard to come up with a practical test that will be proctored at this year's conference.
And so you mentioned you're using the practical test for the level 2 as an arm. Are they going to expand that into other types of portable 3D devices?
Yes, and I'm not quite sure we have nailed down what we're going to be doing for the next year, but I think probably on the order of laser trackers would be the next measurement tool, three-dimensional measurement tool that we would like to bring into the mix.
Great, very practical. Well, you know, you're not only the chairperson currently of CMS, but you're also the president, of course, of API Services. And as a service provider, can you chat a little bit with us about the real benefit of this type of personnel certification?
Sure. I got to admit, when I first heard about this years and years ago about wanting to do this, I was a little cool to the whole thing. But as I've warmed up to it, I think certification in our industry, the metrology industry, is paramount, and especially for a service company like ours. Customers want to know when they hire you to come on their site and measure their tools and their processes. They want to make sure that our equipment is certified, but they also want to know that our people are experienced and certified. And I get asked that all the time. What are your people certified? And yes, we do. We have some of our people that are level 1 certified, and we'll be adding to that at this year's conference. So I think it's a very smart thing to do for a service provider and for major industries who have measurement people on board.
Mm-hmm. Now, the CMSC, as we mentioned, is celebrating their 30th anniversary this year, and it's amazing to think about 1984 to 2014. The industry certainly changed a lot in that period of time, and you've seen a lot of those changes. What would you think have been some of the real major advancements and some of the real most impactful changes that you've seen in the industry and in the CMSC over that period of time?
Well, 30 years is a long time, and I've been involved with CMSC most of those 30 years, and have seen a lot of changes. And as you may know, this is the third time I've been chairman of the committee. And one of the things that I think that we really need to do a better job at is bringing more people in. A lot of people are like myself who've been in from day one are getting a little older. So I wanted to get that plug because we're trying to get new people in the industry all the time. But as far as advancements are concerned, I think we're seeing much better accuracy and speed of equipment. The OEMs who provide the equipment and software have done remarkable jobs over the last 30 years or more advancing their equipment. Also, we've seen a tremendous increase in the scanning technology, the scanning and modeling technology, and that's something that I think everybody's excited about. So, and lastly, I would have to say that as the metrology world, or the 3D metrology world, has matured, I think industry has really depended on it. I think that many processes that were used years and years and years ago have relied on the 3D metrology as their mainstay for taking precision measurements and doing alignment.
You know, all of that, everything you just mentioned there, all those advancements, all those changes are really encapsulated, I think, in one of my favorite parts of the CMSC every year, which is the white paper presentations. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart because I put together a lot of the, or all of the CMSC journals over the course of time from 2006 to now. And those white papers appear in the journal. And it's always amazing to me, Ron, that these white papers are so they're so information packed, and there's so much there for people at every level, really, within metrology to really chew on. And you know, CMSC has become really the place where people can go to show off their projects and you know, get credit for them. So, what is it about CMSC you think that really makes those experts want to come there, want to come here and show off their work?
Well, we've been around for 30 years, and I think we know our industry, obviously, and we provide the forum that equipment manufacturers, software manufacturers, OEMs, users in very prestigious companies come to, and basically it's a think tank, if you will, and we love to share what we do, how we use these things, and we think it's one of the pillars that help prop up this country. So I think it's something that everybody really wants to be involved with from year to year and looks forward to it. And you know, I'm just honored to be a part of it.
And it's a lot of fun too. Well, you know, as we said, this.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, as we were saying, you know, this is World Metrology Week, as we mentioned, and we've had a blast the last few days with a load of really interesting and great articles on metrology and white papers and photos, and of course our World Metrology Week trivia contest. Yeah. We had 2 prizes that we gave away earlier this week: a new iPod Touch, sponsored by Metrology Works,
right, and a rechargeable portable power generator, sponsored by Origin Metrology. But now I'm going to just jump in because
jump right in.
You jumped in on that, so I'm going to jump on this. Now comes the big one. The grand prize of 2 $250 Southwest Airline gift cards, which I would have liked to have won. But anyway, that is sponsored by Exact Metrology, and we now have the name of the grand prize winner. And to reveal that winner, I want to turn it back to Ron to do the honors.
Well, thank you. The grand prize this year was won by Alan Metzel, a Northrop Grumman employee and a long-term member of the CMSC and a hard-working certification member. And we really applaud him, and thanks everybody who participated.
All right. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Alan. Thank you, all the winners. Thank you, everybody who contributed to that.
Yep.
Ron, we're going to see you at CMSC 2014 here in July in South Carolina. We look forward to seeing you. Great town, great historical town, Charleston, and we look forward to being there. So, Ron, we will see you then.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me on board.
Hey, no problem. All right, Ron, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, you know, CMSC, hey, you know, it's one of our fun shows. One of the things we do every year. We've been of course, very closely associated with CMSC over the course of time. We've covered now, you really were the one who got us involved with CMSC.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Well, gosh, 10 or 11, 2004 or something like that.
2004, yeah.
Where,
it's a good show.
It's a great show. Well, I mean, you know, it's for, you know.
Well, and it's a necessary show, really. Yeah. If your company does large-scale 3D measurement, it's really the only show that really covers it in any appreciable way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally dedicated to that. So
well, and like I say, those white papers, they can have more than 24 white papers at the show this year, as they normally do. And having been a guy who's edited a lot of those white papers over the course of time, they are really packed with a lot of information. I mean, but the math, the science that you're going to find in those papers is really valuable. And it gives you an insight into the complexity of doing this work and how important it is for the safety of aerospace and automotive and all these other industries. So,
okay. Well, speaking of safety, we're going to switch to another kind of safety. Food imports account for more than 15% of the U.S. food supply, and this includes about 60% of fresh produce and 75% of seafood. And there are 278,000 registered foreign companies in 200 countries importing products to the United States each year. If a food company doesn't have visibility into their supplier processes, things concerning, things like complaints or corrective actions, change management, and so forth, it could make them extremely vulnerable to product issues that could affect their brand's reputation and their market share, not to mention lawsuits. So in her article, Recipe for Success, Food Safety Regulations and the Role of Quality Management, Kelly Kaczynski of Sparta Systems discusses all that and more. And we have Kelly on the show with us via Skype. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, Derek. Hi, Mike. How are you?
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for joining us.
Well, hey, talk to us a little bit first about supply chain visibility. Why is it that critical an issue, particularly for food safety? And I guess put another way, what makes supply chain issues different for the food industry than it would for consumer products industry or something like that?
Okay, well, food and beverage companies, and I know a lot of industries are very similar. They're more global than ever. They've been expanding their footprint into new markets, trying to capture new revenue, and they've been sourcing their ingredients and raw materials from suppliers all around the world. They're also outsourcing more than ever to contract manufacturers, contract packagers. So they have this huge network of vendors that they just don't have visibility into those processes. And as a result, because of this less visibility, they really don't know what's going on with their product quality, product safety before it is a finished good, because there's so many touch points at that point. And as a result, product recalls have been increasing. I think it's since 2006 alone, food recalls have more than doubled in the U.S. Also, the Center for Disease Control indicated that 1 in 6, or 48 million Americans, become sick every year, and 3,000 die from foodborne illnesses. Right. The financial impact is $78 billion per year. So you're thinking, well, how can an industry that has such an impact on consumer health afford to spend $78 billion per year on consumer health and recalls?
Well, let's talk,
I don't know.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you mentioned in the article that the Food Safety Modernization Act will focus on risk-based and preventative controls. Now, we hear risk-based, quality management systems and so forth. But can you tell us what that means, maybe in general, but specific to the food industry? Okay.
Well, the Food Safety Modernization Act, or they're calling it FSMA, was passed back in January 2011. And it was to ensure that companies put preventative controls in place for both human and animal food to prevent problems with these foodborne illnesses. And this law is not just for U.S. companies, it's also for foreign companies or firms that are manufacturing, processing or packaging food and distributing it to the U.S. So when you look at the requirements around FSMA, you can see the real core component of it is around hazard analysis and critical control points. And a lot of the other regulatory and compliance initiatives out there, such as GMP, ISO 22000, the Global Food Safety Initiative, GFSI, just to name a few, they're all actually having these HACCP control points and these plans in place, and that seems to be a cornerstone of a lot of these regulations.
Kelly, sorry.
No,
go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry.
Finish your point. I'm sorry.
Oh, and I just wanted to say that FSMA finally provides the FDA with that regulatory muscle that they were missing in the past. In the past, companies were made the decision to do a product recall. Now the FDA can force a product recall. They can force shutdown of a facility, as we've seen recently, and they can even quarantine material if they found it to be suspect before it enters the U.S. Supply chain.
Mm-hmm. And that works well into this next point. You talk in your article about getting beyond your four walls and looking at this in a broader perspective. You point out that supplier information is very often siloed. So one facility might not know about supplier issues discovered at another facility. That's a big problem. So what's the danger of that? I believe you had a good example of what can happen when that does happen.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of companies, especially in the food and beverage industry, they have these disparate IT systems in place. So, you have your ERP systems, you have your MES systems, but 80% of companies are still using paper-based or spreadsheet-based systems to control those quality management processes or those issues that arise during that quality inspection process. As a result, this information is not shared across the network, across the enterprise to other facilities, and then it's hard to track or manage or even query that data, especially if there's a regulatory audit. And regulatory auditors hate to come in and see a big pile of boxes that they have to audit manually. So having sort of an automated control in place and an automated system in place really helps them have confidence that your system's in place. But one particular headache was with the supplier quality management program. And a few years ago, I think we're all pretty familiar with that major supplier in the industry. It was the Peanut Corporation of America, or PCA, and they knowingly distributed contaminated peanut product to 361 companies. And that went worldwide, and they produced, I think it was almost 4,000 products with it. And as a result, 700 people became ill, 9 people died from these contaminated products. And although the major peanut butter brands did not source from PCA, most consumers were afraid to even use peanut products at that point. Any peanut butter products, they dropped in demand, and it resulted in a 25% drop in sales. And the entire peanut industry suffered losses of $1 billion. What's really alarming about that is, out of those 361 companies, no one discovered the contamination issue before or after production. And so this one company we spoke to about it, they actually identified PCA as a high-risk supplier, and they banned them from their supplier list. Unfortunately, the information was siloed in their headquarters office, and it wasn't accessible to their other facilities. So this other global facility ordered product from PCA, and as a result, they made product, and then they had to recall product from the shelves, and it really affected their supply chain. It affected their sales, and they had to, endure embarrassment with the board as well as their consumers.
So, and I think we're running out of time here, but basically there are tools out there, software tools out there, that help open up this visibility so that this information can be more easily shared. You kind of start breaking down the silos so that this information can be available, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about in a upcoming webinar, right?
on the 29th of May. That's right, on Thursday 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And it'll be myself and Kelly. You're the presenter, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, it'll be us again.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you for joining us this morning. And anybody interested in food safety, that webinar will be coming up, and we can dive into it in more depth.
That's right.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Yeah, again, the 29th of May, Thursday, next Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, where we do most of our stuff. So check it out. Check out your email for information on that. Okay, well, again, this was World Metrology Week. We said it about 20 times on the show, so just in case you missed it. We want to close, though, with a little video that Dirk did in honor of meteorologists everywhere.
Meteorologists? Metrologists.
Metrologists, sorry, everywhere. Cute little video that Dirk did, so we're going to leave you with that. Before we go, thank you all for joining us. Thank you again to Kelly Kaczynski of Sparta, and Ron Hicks of API Services and CMSC for joining us.
And have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week.
So like that.
Bye.
This week is World Meteorology Week, when across the world the people who tell you if it's going to rain or snow or whether you'll be able to bask at the beach in perfect 80... What's that?
It's metrology, not metrology.
I said meteorology.
No, yeah, I know. It's metrology, not meteorology. Metrology.
What the heck is metrology?
You know, it's the measurement of stuff. How heavy this is, how long that is, how girthy this is.
Okay,
that kind of stuff.
Metrology.
Right.
This week in World Metrology Week, when across the world the people who measure stuff celebrate the art and science of measuring stuff, like turbine engine blades and the fuel injectors in the car, like the one that you take to the beach on a beautiful day like today with a low of 76 and a high of 84. World Metrology Day is May 20th, and it celebrates the signature by representatives of 17 nations of the Meter Convention on May 20th, 1875. The goal of the convention today is as important as it was 139 years ago: worldwide uniformity of measurement. Meteorologists around the Metrologists around the world work to ensure that any measurement taken anywhere in the world means the same thing. If it wasn't for the international kilogram standard kept in a hermetically sealed vault at the
Bureau International des Poids et Mesures,
100 kilos in California would be different than 100 kilos in, say, Bogota, Colombia. The theme for this year's World Metrology Day is Measurements and the Global Energy Challenge. To meet the challenge, skilled meteorologists today often work with metrologists around the world, get out from behind their weather maps and use their unique technical skills to measure things like the surface form of a turbine engine blade. So today, across the world, national metrology institutes continually advance measurement science by developing and validating new measurement techniques. They also participate in comparisons coordinated by the
Bureau International des Poids et Mesures,
to ensure the reliability of measurement results worldwide. So join me today in saluting all those skilled men and women who make our world a more accurate and predictable place to live. Show them you care about precise measurements. Hug a meteorologist today.
Metrologist.
Hug a metrologist today.